The Absolute DC Universe is set to launch 3 new titles in the coming weeks: Absolute Flash, Absolute Green Lantern, and Absolute Martian Manhunter, all of which are exciting new takes on classic DC characters. And with the latest update on Absolute Green Lantern, we might be getting the craziest Absolute DC villain yet. Hey Internet, I'm Chris, and this is the place on the internet where I talk about comics, movies, games, and things I'm generally passionate about. Before we get into Absolute Green Lantern, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Absolute Green Lantern by Al Ewing and Jonah Lindsay is set to drop in April. And at first, when this was initially announced, this was probably one of my more anticipated Absolute titles. But as I learned more about Absolute Flash and Absolute Martian Manhunter, honestly, Absolute Green Lantern kind of took a back burner. And I love Al Ewing's work on Immortal Hulk. It's one of my favorite comic runs of all time, and it's exciting to think of him doing something a little bit cosmic horror-y with the Absolute Green Lantern line. Like, it's supposed to be a first contact story. You have Joe Mullen. There are no rings. There's no Green Lantern Corps. You have Hal Jordan. You have John Stewart. You also will have appearances by Alan Scott, Abin Sur. So there are going to be some classic elements of Green Lantern, which we kind of expect. If you've been reading any of these Absolute titles, you know they're taking classic elements of these stories and these characters and flipping them on their head. When it comes to Green Lantern, Absolute Green Lantern, that is, I wouldn't say it's the most radical departure from the initial lore. Yeah, you don't have rings or anything like that. But I think it is trying to do something much more personal, and sort of the storytelling is a little different. What I mean by that, in Al Ewing's comments about Absolute Green Lantern, and particularly the first issue, you have a first contact story, and the way he's sort of describing this first contact with the Lantern is something more biblical, an approach from a perspective that readers should go in not knowing anything. Yes, you know these characters, but it's going to feel very different. And that's exciting, yes, but I am not in love with Lindsay's preview art. I've never read anything with their sequentials, and honestly, seeing the preview art, I will say this is not the best looking Absolute book. But I'm still going to take it in because I've been loving every title, and to be honest, I'm super excited for Absolute Flash and Absolute Martian Manhunter. So I think the bar was really set high with those, so Absolute Green Lantern kind of like, again, took a back burner. And something that has been kind of revealed, and honestly I feel dumb for not noticing it, and the closer we get and more preview pages we get, is becoming abundantly clear that Hal Jordan will probably be the villain of this story, the main villain. So in the preview art, you see Hal sort of seeing a black circle and also entering, and then also some covers you see him sort of like with a black hand, which, if you know anything about Green Lantern lore, you know Black Hand is a Green Lantern villain. So that is an interesting take to make Hal the Black Hand, and I wonder if it's something that can be transferred and what that means. You know, again, referencing those biblical elements, Black Hand is the center of the Blackest Night story, which is sort of the epic Green Lantern story. It's a toss-up between Sinestro Corps War and Blackest Night as the most epic Green Lantern story ever told, both by Jeff Johns. And I think Black Hand is a crazy villain, and it would be interesting to see how they approach Hal being this character, or Hal having this mantle. Will Necron appear, and how Death and the Green Lantern Light interact, being that there's no emotional spectrum that we know of. We know the Speed Force is going to be flipped on his head as well, so I wonder what the Green Lantern Light will look like in terms of what it means. Have to factor in what does that mean for the rest of the characters that we know and love, and who they will be. Will Alan Scott be villainous? Will Kyle Rayner be a friend? Will Guy Gardner be a friend? I know John Stewart is going to be an older character, and I'd imagine, you know, maybe a mentor to Hal and Joe. I'm kind of interested to see how this all plays out. Like, there's very little, like, if you read the solicitation for the book, it's like no rings, no lantern, no core, no will, absolute Green Lantern. And that's kind of the solicitation for all of these books, because they're not trying to spoil things, which is great, because I think every book has had its own surprises. And this Black Hand element, like, I guess it would be cool if we just didn't get Hal Jordan as a villain every 6 months. and and Al Ewing kind of described this as like Hal's like really bad day. Like things are going great for him in the regular line, which he's kind of broken that one. So I don't know how great things are going. And then you also have the Lanterns TV series where you have an older Hal Jordan, and I wouldn't be surprised if they flipped that and made him Parallax in that series. And then when we got the animated movie with Jon Stewart, Hal Jordan was Parallax in that. So it's just like, honestly, I'm just sick of it. I guess this would have been cool maybe a year ago before the Lantern story sort of like became more clear, and maybe we didn't get this evil Hal Jordan thing every 6 months. I maybe would be more interested in it, but to me, again, it's kind of like a tired trope that like Hal is evil, and I think we forget like, hey, maybe that Parallax story, the reason Green Lantern Rebirth and Jeff Johns' run is so iconic is because for the most part it addressed it and sort of like retconned it, but also it was Hal being a hero for most of that story, and maybe, just maybe, we give that a try. I don't know. I sound like I'm complaining, and I am in a way. But like I said, I'm still excited to see this book because I think every Absolute book, despite some of the changes in the character's lore or backstory, seem gimmicky or seem tired or tropey. Like Absolute Superman, I thought that was going to be like Edgelord Superman, is going to be like Homelander, all the takes that we've seen or like over the past like 10 years. And yet, Jason Aaron was able to do something very interesting, and it's exciting. That's one of the books I'm excited to read every month. And I hope that is the case with Green Lantern. I love this cast of characters. Joe, I didn't love Far Sector, but I'm down for a great Joe Mullen story. So I'm all in. And like I said, I love Al Ewing's work. The art, I'm not too in love with, but again, I'm willing to give it a try. I wasn't familiar with Hayden Sherman's work in Absolute Wonder Woman, and I ended up sort of like backtracking and finding other work that they have done after reading that book. So hopefully, once the story comes together and I get my hands on issue 1, I'll be able to sort of really appreciate the art for what it is. What do you guys think? Are you like me where you're sick of evil Hal Jordan? Are you excited about Absolute Green Lantern? Let me know. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.